Good morning, all. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Morning.
I'm good. I'm good. Still alive and healthy, so I gotta thank God for that. I trust that all of you had a productive week. And you all had the opportunity to listen to the recording for those who missed and do some classwork. And we're at week 7 now, so I really want to know if persons are experiencing any difficulties. And I think I asked this last week. Are we experiencing any difficulties? Are we? Is there any particular chapter that we are not clear on? Uh, do we have any questions, especially after we would have done the classwork and some of you would have done the homework? Is there anybody who needs any extra assistance? Because we have 3 weeks left and it's gonna go by pretty quickly. So I want to just do a spot check to make sure that when we get to the final exam, we are clear. And I know there are quite a number of persons that speak up every week, and I'm very pleased with that. And then there's some people who are a little bit shy and who don't always get the opportunity to speak up. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So is there anybody? Let me see. I see a hand. Diana.
Hi, Miss Bullard. Good morning. Good morning, ladies.
Morning.
It's not that I'm having any difficulties in any areas, but I wouldn't have taken the intro class. So I guess I just kind of want to make sure I'm on the right page with my format of studying. I guess I'd like to know in more detail exactly what I should be focusing on to prepare me effectively for the exam.
Okay, so there are 10 chapters in the book. There are going to be 10 choices. You have to answer 4 questions. In fact, 5. 1 is mandatory, and 4 are the ones you would choose from there, those 10 choices. So essentially what you want to do is focus on a particular chapter and, you know, study that and ensure that you understand. So on the classwork, of course, you know, there are about 4 chapters on risk. Of course, you know, in those 10 choices, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 questions on risk. You now have to make the determination. Am I going to stay away from risk completely, or do I want to answer one of those risk questions, right? And so you attempt the classwork question, and if there's a homework question on risk, then I would also encourage you to do that. Have you done your homework as yet?
Yes, I've been doing all of the homeworks.
Okay, no, I mean the homework that had to be turned in.
Oh, yes, I did that for the second question.
Okay, and you got your grade back?
No, I didn't receive a response yet.
Okay. Okay,
so I don't know if those were sent.
Okay, so I'll check with the cross marker to see if she put in the final grades, and then I should be able to forward them on to you today. However, once you get your homework grade, that should give you an indication if you're on the right track or not.
Okay, great. So then
Right.
each chapter would have a question on the exam, or more or less.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. And like I said, risk is about 4 chapters, so of course you're going to get minimum 2 risk questions.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
And then the cases that are mentioned in the book, I know you said that it's highly likely that the mandatory question would be regarding the cases, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay, and I've always seen it from the Bahamas aspect, right? And so sometimes it's compare and contrast. They want to know, do these things happen in the Bahamas as well? You know, is fraud prevalent in the Bahamas? And of course, you know, yes, straight off the top it is, right? So there are many, many cases. You can go online and you can Google and Tribune242.com or the Guardian242.com, or even Bahamas Court News comes out, and it gives you the details of exactly what happened in the various fraud cases. So that's a very easy, you know, one to find the Bahamian examples for. So
okay,
I would document at least 2 Bahamian examples along
Okay.
with the 3 cases at the back.
Okay, great. One final question,
Right.
Ms. Bullard. For the exam, is there a specific length to what we write for answer for a specific question, or are you guys looking more so that we actually answered what the question was asking?
Yeah, so there's no specific length, but the question normally has 3 parts. So when we get closer to the review class, I will go through. Please read the entire question, read it twice, ensure that you understand what the question is asking you. A lot of times, the question will say, a recent question I think on intro was explain enhanced due diligence and the importance of customer due diligence. So
Okay.
persons explained enhanced due diligence. They talked about the controls that need to be put in place. It's done for high risk and PEPs and the budget time for PEPs and yada yada. They went on. But then the second part of the question said, what is the importance of customer due diligence? And almost 90% of the persons left that out.
Okay.
So here it is. They got 6 points for having the correct answer, talking about the controls, but they forgot the other part, right?
Okay.
Another popular question is about terrorism. You know, explain 3 ways in which terrorists finance their activities. And what is the effect on the financial services sector? So of course, immediately people said charities, extortion, taxes, and they go on. They have their examples, they have everything. What did they forget? What is the effect on the financial services sector? Again, they only get 5 or 6 points. So those little 3 or 4 points, persons always lose because they don't read, or I don't know if it's not reading the entire question or they don't understand. And they get so caught up answering one part of the question. So if you want full points, please read the entire question. Ensure that you double check it. Now the exam is for 3 hours, and we normally say we allot like 20 minutes to each question. We'll accept, you don't need more than a page and a half. The content is way more important than the word count. We don't even count the word count because you're writing. And in short, like I say, we're looking for points, specific points that you answer the question in full.
Okay.
And it's easier to get full points that way.
Okay. One final thing. I know I said the previous was my final.
That's fine. Go ahead.
I know that class participation and attending the Rotary meetings or the Toastmasters, those are also parts of our grades. Will we get some type of feedback as to where we currently stand, as to if we fulfilled those requirements?
But yeah, I mean, I don't give written feedback, but I do say you can calculate if you're going into the exam with the full 30 points, because of course, 20 points is for homework, and you can divide your score that you receive to find out if you got the full 20 points.
Okay.
Right. And then for participation and Rotary, of course, the 5% you get automatically. But in terms of participation, if you have been reading the newspaper and you have been sharing, I do have a list. Each time persons say, I read the newspaper and what have you. So I do have that list. And this is a very good question, because somebody actually reported me 2 classes ago because they failed the class and they didn't get their 10%. Right? And so these classes are recorded. I was able to say, please just go and listen to the recording. I called this person's name 4 times in 3 different classes, and they never ever responded. And it wasn't even to find out if they read the newspaper. It was simple. I was asking questions going down the line, and I was saying, Pratt, do you have a response? Give me some feedback. The person never responded. But then they argued that they failed the class because I didn't give them their 10%. I said, first of all, I've never even met this person. I've had no conversation with the person at all. And you can go and listen to recordings where I tried to question the person, but they said I caused them to fail. So it's very easy to go into this exam comfortably with 30%. And so you only need, the exam is 70%. Now, some persons are scholars and they say, oh, the overall class, the final exam is 70%. So I guess I get 100% on the exam. And I don't need to participate and I don't need to do my homework. I said, okay, go right ahead. I've been teaching this for the past 6 years, and I think I've seen persons out of probably more than 1,000 get 100%. So I'm not saying it's not achievable, but nobody has ever gotten 100% overall with just doing the final exam. It was because they did their homework and they got 100%. It was because they got the bonus points. It was because they participated. But I don't argue with adults. If you feel that you don't need to participate and you don't need the 10 and the 5% isn't, you don't have time for it. I mean, we have busy lives. People say, I don't have time to do the homework. And then after they fail, they call me back and say, Bullet, please accept my homework. I say, after you had 10 weeks, should Miss Bullet really give you an extension? You had 10 weeks. Okay? So like I said, this is very achievable, but you do your part, you sit comfortably in your exam, and you're not there sweating because somebody didn't do their homework and they didn't get the 5%. They did participate by reading the newspaper, but they sat in the exam for 3 hours and only did the multiple choice because they was overwhelmed. So
okay, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, if you prepare, it's very achievable.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bullard.
And you're definitely on the right track because you weren't an intro, and I know every week we have a conversation. So full participation, very good dialogue, and very good grade on your homework. So you should not be concerned.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Sheena, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, all. Can you go over sanctions for me, please? I need a bit more clarity on that.
Okay. Okay, so let me just say, I see 2 other hands, and then we'll go. Perhaps one of these hands will give us some insight. Go, Vissaline, go ahead.
I only wanted to ask, I don't remember if you gave us a mandatory word count on our homework.
Yeah, I think it's 1,000 to 1,200 words.
Okay, I just was making sure.
Yeah, look at the top of the instruction sheet. It should be there.
I looked at it, but it doesn't have it on it.
It doesn't say that? Okay.
It just said to refer to the ICA handbook for a format.
Okay, yeah, so about 1,000 to 1,200 words.
Okay.
And again, all of that is just for practice, because remember, when you get to ICA, there's a minimum requirement of 2,500 words. So I say, and listen to me, you get 20 points off immediately, because the first thing they do is check the word count. And if that word count is below 2,500, or if it's over 35, you get at least 20% taken off. So that's why we wanted you to get used to doing research and adding relevant content. So just for practice.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Alicia, you're welcome. Alicia?
Good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to say that I attended my Rotary meeting, Rotaract meeting, and I wanted to give feedback whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so let me add your name to the list, and let me go over sanctions for Sheena, because I want Sheena to ensure that she understands, and I want each person to give Sheena some input on sanctions. So let me just make sure, because Ms. Bulletin have all these things in her head, Sheena. So let's look back at the chapter. It was, I think, chapter 3, and give the key points on sanctions. So what is important is that we understand what a sanction is and why they administered. Okay, so the book says that a sanction is, where is it?
You said chapter 3, Ms. Bullock?
Yeah, chapter 3. So my book is old, so yeah, it might
Oh,
be
yeah.
like page
That's it.
25, 26. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So it says compliance with the sanction regime. It's a regulatory requirement for financial institutions in the financial sector to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and sanction breaches. The avoidance of sanctions breaches is a high-profile compliance requirement for all companies and businesses today. Where it's believed that a country, jurisdiction, regime, organization, or individual is violating or threatening to violate international law, the United Nations regional bodies, European Union, and the rest of the international regulators and individual countries use tools such as sanctions and embargoes to put them in place. So if Iran getting out of control, we could put a sanction on you to put you in place. Cash flow back in the day was a bit out of control in the eyesight of America. So they put this sanction in place to, get them back, to threaten them, to get back into control. Because, we have some dictators out there who think they are most powerful and they can do whatever they feel like doing. So these sanctions are tools to, correct some bad behavior. Okay? So in the international community, sanctions and embargoes are used for the following: to encourage a change in behavior of a target country or regime, to apply pressure on a target country or regime, as an enforcement tool when international peace and security has been threatened. And so, of course, around the world, they have like these chemical bombs and atomic bombs or whatever from Iran. And so to make sure that Iran just doesn't kill a bunch of people, they say if you kill a bunch of people, we'll halt financial stability coming in your countries. So we put bans and embargo on if your country like produces a lot of lumber. They put a sanction on lumber because that's the main source of your income. Like the Bahamas, they're heavily dependent on tourism. They put a sanction on the Bahamas and say no tourists are to go there, like how they have it on Cuba. That drastically would, tourism is 80% of our GDP. So that if they halt and put a sanction on our tourism, definitely that would affect us, right, Gina? So they would put that on and tell ministers change this behavior. But they say if ministers don't change this behavior, we sanction this country, so we affect the amount of money coming in the country. Okay, so on the exam, the question will definitely ask you, what is the purpose of the sanction? Okay, why do we need them? Okay, and so that's how you would answer it. You would say to change behavior, to apply pressure, or to enforce international peace or security, right? And then there are targeted sanctions or embargoes. And the measures applied to targeted sanctions are embargoes on exporting or supplying arms and related material, travel bans. Nobody goes to the Bahamas. We go affect their GDP, and basically their economy is going to go down if we ban we put this travel ban on people flying, because there is currently a travel ban on Cuba. And so Americans are banned from going to Cuba. And so, of course, they say Cuba is like a tourist. It's very beautiful if anybody's ever been. They have beautiful waters just like we do. And so if they were open up that, half of the people that come to the Bahamas would go to Cuba. However, there are some radical people who say, we don't care about no travel ban. And so what they do is they fly from Florida or anywhere in the United States or anywhere in Europe to Nassau, and then they take a flight from Nassau to Cuba. And surprisingly, it's like a little bit of underworld, because normally, when you leave the country, immigration would stamp inside your passport, and they actually give you a temporary card that you throw away after you come from Cuba, because they don't want the next time you travel for immigration to question you or what have you, say, hey, you've been to Cuba, you're an American citizen, you should not have gone there. So that's the workaround. You just fly to another country to get a flight in, but there's no flights that go from America to Cuba. Now, just before Obama left office, he relaxed some of the restrictions on Cuba, and he said Americans can travel to Cuba once, I think once a month or something like that. But the government had changed and Trump had come in, and so where Obama had relaxed it, Trump put them right back on. So before the people had a chance to travel there, it was stopped. Okay. With targeted sanctions, the measures applied to targeted sanctions are embargoes, travel bans, ban on exporting equipment, bans on import of raw material or goods from the sanctions target, financial sanctions on individuals in the government bodies and associated companies. And so if you ever see these executive orders that come from the prime minister or from the president, you will see that it lists names. It specifically says, DeAndra cannot, or DeAndra Evans cannot travel. There's a ban on her specific name and her family, and everybody is, attached to her. Or there's a ban on lumber. Or in Cuba, Cuba is very self-sufficient. They don't have the fertilizers and everything that the rest of the world has, and so they get a lot of aid and stuff from Russia and different parts of Europe. But you would find that the taste of the meat is completely different because they don't like import cases and cases of meat and produce and like we do in the Bahamas. So when you go there, it's like an acquired taste for all the food because it's more like vegan style because they don't import all the fertilizers and what have you. So you'll see the difference. So like I said, the question we'll ask you, what's the purpose of sanctions? What are the types of sanctions, and what's the reason for them? And then perhaps what country is sanctioned? On the homework, the question is, what did sanctioned countries do during COVID-19? How were they affected? So you could have done some research, and you know that Cuba is sanctioned. I think we talked about it when we in the class, whereas the Bahamas took some doctors from Cuba to Dominica that was assistance. So other countries stepped in terms of PPE equipment. China sent PPE equipment to Venezuela and to Cuba. Iran had asked the IMF for money, but the US had blocked it. Like 100 countries had asked for money during COVID to just keep, their country afloat. And most of them are approved. However, when it came to the approval for Iran, the US stepped in and blocked their approval and said, no, that's a sanctioned country. Let them basically suffer. We're not sending them any PPE equipment. And we are blocking them until they change their behavior. However, the UK loaned Iran 500,000 euros so that they wouldn't completely sink during COVID. Okay, so they said the use of sanctions can be grouped into 5 main categories, and the categories are counterterrorism, conflict resolution, protection of civilians, non-proliferation of weapons, and democratization. Okay, and so online, if you can go and Google like counterterrorism, there's a resolution 748 and a resolution 883 that talks about the destruction of the Pan Am flight in Libya. And this Pan Am flight was back in the 80s, I think, or 70s. And that's how long Libya has been blocked because of that flight crashing or being Libya, I don't know, sending an atomic bomb or something like that with the Pan Am, right? And so they have had that for many, many years. They saw it as terrorism. And so to change that, to make sure that Libya did not blow any other planes out the air, they put that sanction on them. Then conflict resolution. There's a resolution from Iran, number 2231, where the Iranian government was in conflict with, because they were sanctioned, they weren't being paid the proper price for their oil. And again, Obama had put some stuff in the G20, had put some stuff in place. And when Trump came in, he did not honor what they promised. And so this conflict has been going on for years. And protection of civilians, there's a resolution 1265 and 981 on Rwanda, where persons were being bombed and killed and what have you. And so they sanctioned and they said, listen, if more people die or, sleeping in the night and their houses are bombed, we will take away aid and we will do different things to change the behavior. Non-proliferation, there's a global treaty from 1970. Democratization, there's a 940 resolution. So you can Google those and you would be able to find examples on those categories. So of course, the question will ask, or no matter what the question asks, it is important to say, what's the purpose and what are the categories and what are the types? And then you find an example on, on one of those different resolutions. For example, if you talk about conflict resolution, you say in Iran, resolution 2231, or counterterrorism, destruction of the Pan Am flight in Libya, this caused them to, sanction. Another popular question asks, what are the controls in place? And if you look on page 29, it asks, how do you design a sanctions framework? And what is important. And the framework, it says, should comply with the sanctions obligations, which should include the following: documented policies and procedures, including risk assessment, defining roles and responsibility, raising awareness, monitoring screening of systems against sanctions lists, an escalation process, reporting requirements, and requirements for reviewing sanction-related processes. So again, I've seen a lot of persons answer the first part of the question. What are the categories? Why do we need sanctions? What is the purpose of a targeted sanction? They forget the ending part that asks, and what are the tools needed to design a proper compliance framework? They leave that part out. Okay, so make sure that you read the entire question. And like I said, the sanctions questions to me is the easiest. And so if you decide that that's a topic that you want to attempt, it's very easy to get full points there. Okay, you document the process and then you give an example and you get 10 points. Okay, so Sheena, was that clear? Do you have any questions?
Very clear. Now I can see in the book, and that's a good guideline. So thank you very much. So I will study that further.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else wants to add? Did I miss anything in that overview?
No, I think you did a good job. All I would, when I think about sanctions, I just think about like a toddler being naughty and you putting them in timeout until they decide to behave.
Correct that behavior, right. Okay, yeah, very good example. Very good example. Okay, great. All right, so you want to start? So you will start with telling us about attending Rotary, and then anybody else who read the newspaper can go ahead and share with us.
Okay, so
Alicia?
good morning again. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, good. Okay, so I attended the UB Rotary because that's the only one, readily enough, that goes with my life schedule. So the meeting was the first meeting of the entire, I guess, semester. It was basically, it seemed like it was good. It was interesting. I guess they really were just trying to introduce themselves and hype up people for the new I don't know what it's called, but I guess the new semester, the new Rotary year, or Rotaract year, I should say. So they had a speaker. Her name is Shadina Anton, and she was the past president of the UB Rotaract. And she just basically was like giving an overview of Rotaract, where it's 18 and older, and the purpose of it is service above self. They also spoke about the 4-way tests, and they said that in UB they kind of have like a 5-way test, where the fifth one would be to get lit. So I thought that was, I guess, interesting, because then it seemed like it's more than just service. It's also, I guess, having fun and fellowshipping with other students. They spoke about like how Rotaract have 6 goals, where to develop skills, respect, to serve, promote ethical standards, promote opportunities, and develop knowledge. They also said September was Literacy Month, and they said it was like a 3-way umbrella. This part I didn't really understand, where it was Rotary, Interact, and Rotaract. And she also gave like the definition of Rotaract. So like I said, the meeting was more so just like a background on Rotaract, like how you would do a first class, where you just gave the background of the subject matter. So that's kind of what it was. So it was interesting. It wasn't long either. And it definitely wasn't boring, because I kind of thought it would have been, to be honest. So yeah, that was the meeting. It wasn't anything crazy. They had a nice icebreaker where you pick a random number between 1 and 4, and I picked 2, and you have to give 2 fun facts, or whatever number you chose, you had to give that amount of fun facts about yourself. So I thought it was a good meeting.
Okay, well, excellent. I'm so glad that it wasn't boring, and that you found it beneficial. So I do hope you have the opportunity to attend again. And again, sometimes, we have to remember our purpose. Our whole purpose is to network, and we need to know the movers and shakers, right? We need to get our names out there, and so we can get hold of some of this opportunity that's there, So I'm glad that it was fun also. Okay, so very good, Alicia, and thank you for sharing. Okay, Deandra.
Hi, morning. I also attended a Rotaract meeting. But before I get there, Alicia, Interact is from what I get from it, Interact is the high school affiliate. Rotaract is the transition from the high school between 18 to 30. And then Rotary is for those older professionals. So that's what I gathered from it. When they also, in this section, they also talked about it as well. One of the persons who are coming in asked a similar question. But I went to the Rotaract Club of Nassau Sunset, their meeting. It's Literacy Month, and so they had a topic on financial literacy, and there was a speaker. I think her name was Miss Charlton. She's a CPA. Sorry, Miss Colley. She's a CPA, and she spoke to us about just basically being young professionals and how to budget your funds, how to invest, how to get your name out there, whether it's you want to do something, whether it's you want to do a side hustle or you want to quit a 9-to-5 and go into that permanently. And she also provided some spreadsheets as well for us to follow in terms of if you don't have a budgeting friendly, if you're not budget friendly. And she also advised that she gave her office hours and told us that we can come to her rather for a free consultation. So I thought that was good and very informative. A lot of stuff that she spoke about, being a young professional myself, I didn't take heed to it before she said it. They also had an icebreaker before the speaker came on. It's kind of a normal icebreaker, I would say, with things you would carry on a deserted island and why you would carry them. And yeah, the introduction of different persons, I guess new persons who just came out to the meeting to get a understanding of it. And then they also have perspectives, they call them, persons who are interested. They started to come to meetings, but they're not fully a members yet. They haven't paid any dues or anything like that. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting to see where they took Literacy Month. I thought it was just from what a friend told me, the Literacy Month. But I guess what different clubs do it differently. But what a friend told me when they were talking about Literacy Month, they did in school stuff. So they read to preschools and certain things like that. So I just thought it was a good take on Literacy Month to include financial literacy as one of, especially in the COVID era.
Good that she talked about the importance, like I said, of networking. So good that you walked away with some information that was food for thought. Okay, and so I hope you do get to put some of that into action. Okay, so very good, Deandra. Deanne?
Yes, Ms. Bullard, I just, I don't know if we were gonna start talking about the articles that we've read yet, but
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
one that I'd like to share.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've been scanning the newspaper for the week, but I didn't really see anything much that was AML related, but I did come across.
You didn't see all that IMF stuff
No,
and all the background with the IMF?
I did not see that part. Maybe I didn't check it on the right day. But I did come across something that did involve the whole what's it called? The medical marijuana.
Okay, good. And the industry.
Right. So it does have to do with the drug industry at one point. But basically it was Terry Miller. He spoke to the Tribune, and he's the chairman of the Green Alternative Investment Network Corporative Society. And basically, he's predicting that the next government, whichever it may be, the PLP or the FNM, like I said, I don't really dwell into the politics, but whichever one it might be, he's predicting that the next government will legalize this sector. So I thought that was—
It is legalized.
It is currently legalized?
Yeah, they did it in June. Medical marijuana?
I know there was a draft legislation.
I think
that
the legislation hasn't been passed as yet.
Right. I know there was a draft, but I don't think that it was passed.
No, in June. I am certain that it passed in June. It passed in June because in June, I was on an interview with one of the regulators, and that was actually one of the questions that they asked me. They said that possibly you may be responsible to what did they say? I possibly may be responsible to deal with the new legislation on medical marijuana. What are my views in that regard? And I say, I support it 100%. Around the world, it has helped so many persons, who are in need. And I said, I do imagine that there are going to be some abuses. I can't imagine the type of security that you would need now, because I know at the same time in the papers, I had just read an article where farmers had come out and said, please strengthen the laws on people coming onto their farms and just taking what they want. You know what I mean? And the laws are not stringent enough to prosecute. So I said,
right, and
definitely.
And a lot of farms have been getting robbed.
Like robbed.
So they were doing that, right?
I went completely off track in the interview. I said, so could you imagine, trying to keep somebody out of your marijuana field if we can't keep them out of a mango tree, But then everybody laughed, so it kind of broke the ice. So I was like, okay, good. Yeah, I
Okay.
think I can just imagine the security that would be needed. So I'm almost because they that was one of the questions they asked me about the. They said, "Are you familiar with the new law on medical marijuana? What are your
Mhm.
views?"
World currently and basically legalizing it. But what I did find interested in that article is that he made a very valid point. He said that what was criminal yesterday can become mainstream today. So it's like you have all of this illicit drug trade and guns trade and gang violences going on. And it's in the prohibition era, when people were smuggling rum, fortunes from and stuff. Nowadays, those family, it's not illegal anymore. Nowadays, these families are living wealthy. So it's just interesting. And then it goes into, how many of the members in the Black community were incarcerated for marijuana, and I just thought it was an interesting take on it. How what could be deemed criminal yesterday is now legal today,
Right,
and how easy it is to kind of do that.
and so
Mhm.
I know before they made it legal in a few states in America, they actually had to release some persons from prison. So I don't remember. I gonna get specifically being towards marijuana, but I do remember reading in the newspaper where they said, there are 5 different types of licenses. Each license is going to be $10,000, and I said, okay, they make it reasonable for the average man, and it wasn't like the gaming licenses that were like $1 million each, and then each staff had to be registered or what have you. So I was saying, I could get these 5 licenses for $50,000. I was thinking about it. So I don't think Minnesota called election without putting that in place. Does he wants that as one of his accomplishments? I make marijuana legal. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't think he would have given that opportunity. So I'm almost certain that those laws have been passed.
Right.
What is very ironic, you said Terry Miller. That's Leslie Miller's brother. And if
Oh.
this is the same Terry Miller, he is the head of BASH, which is the
Mhm.
Rehabilitative Center
Oh, wow.
for drug abuse.
Wow, that is
You all know about BASH,
wow.
right?
No, this is my first time hearing about
Yeah. So
Bash.
BASH is through the corner. Oh my God, what can I say? Like in the back of out not what's the place name? St. Albans Drive. It's like
Oh,
a community, a rehabilitative center, like in the back of a Jasper Gardens. And I'm
and it's
almost,
for drug use?
yes, it's for drug use. To
Wow.
go there, if you have a drug problem, they take
Mm.
you off the streets and they keep you there and rehabilitate you. Because in his teenage years, he was out on drugs. And
Mm.
his family, of course, could have afforded to send him off and put him in a proper institution. So when he came back and he saw that there were no institutions in the Bahamas to, help persons out on drugs, he then opened a BASH. So it's very ironic now that he is now the head of some other group to
Right,
support it.
right, right.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So
Okay.
question, is it legalized in the Bahamas now?
Yes, medical marijuana. I mean, I am almost certain, and you all could go and Google this. I'm
Yes.
almost certain that in June they passed those laws.
Miss
Now,
Bennett, every time I researched it, it doesn't say that it was passed. It just kept saying that the legislation is in final works.
So because
okay,
I don't
you
hear the
know,
Rastafarians, I'm talking about, sorry, but I don't hear the Rastafarians talking about it anymore. So I was wondering if, because they had that
right?
strong
I'm
so
almost certain because the laws goes through 3 stages, and the
right.
Senate has the final sign off. So if the Senate, I can't see minutes calling the election. and not having that as his accomplishment.
Let's hope that they don't corrupt
Yeah.
an already corrupt business. And
Yeah.
I really wish that Bahamians, they would have at least made it mandatory that Bahamians would own more than 51%. It shouldn't be half, in my opinion.
I agree, Wesley,
With other
because
investors.
that stood out, right?
Yeah,
That
I
did
think
stand
Bahamians should
out.
at least own more of the business, more than 50%, more than 51, at least 75.
And I hope it's that. I hope it's that percentage that they're stating. If
But to be honest, you think would enter a business relationship where they only have 25%?
Oh, of course. Of
They would
course.
never do that with the
No,
Bahamas,
no,
but then that's the name we give ourselves.
Yeah, listen, these foreign investors, they just all about the money. And so you have the people down in Colorado and you know, trying to invest because there's a lot of, what should I say, accessory businesses that could go along with it. Like out of Colorado, they, you know, they don't have that type of soil to grow it in bulk. And so they bought up all the land in Anguilla, I think. They bought acres and acres, like 100 acres in Anguilla, so half of the country just for the marijuana field for Colorado. And so if you see somebody coming in, a foreign investor owning only 25%, that means he doesn't buy up all the land in Andros. That's this entry level way to get into the Bahamas, to now get citizenship. And he say, okay, fine, they have a cap here. What I can do is go to all these Bahamians and give them an extra $5,000 on this land, and and both I own all the fields. You see what I mean? So you can only own a certain amount, the licenses. However, you could own all the fields. You could own what how do they the processing plant, the factories, the paper to wrap it in. Like there's so many different businesses that'll come along with it. You know, where you could become a billionaire. You know, so yeah, they ain't worried about that. I that's just a one. You know what I mean? It's a gateway to get them to other ventures. You see what I mean? So I don't know if they'll have a problem with that. Not with marijuana. I mean, all around the world. I don't know if you all, you know, watched the news on the day. It wouldn't have been in Colorado because Colorado was one of the first countries. But let's just say the day it became legal in Atlanta, people, you know, like how the people that stand outside for GameStop when a new game coming out, they like sleep outside on the sidewalk. And of course, these like little children and stuff like that, or teenagers. So you expect that they online for hours for the new game, the new iPhone. In whatever city it was, these people slept outside on the sidewalk. The mayor was on the line from 5 a.m. and they recorded this. And I'm talking about they made $1 million the first day. And I can't remember if it was Atlanta or whatever, but it was all over the news. Anybody know what I'm talking about? No?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So trust me, this is a $1 billion business. $1 billion. Yeah, people like marijuana. And I mean, it's only medical and it's a $1 billion. So I don't know. But good to stay abreast. And again, like I said, this pandemic taught us, you know, what are essential services, and that you can't really depend on the hotels and tourism and, you know, all these things. You have to make a job, you know. And so what are you gonna do? Like Deandra said, you know, what you do on for your side hustle, what you do in your spare time could make you very rich. So there's a new industry coming on, and there's a lot of accessory businesses, you know, affiliated with it. Don't let the big boys. I mean, they have to make it look good and give some little small prize, you know, a little piece of the pie. So make sure you use one of them prizes. You might be big in the game, I don't know, but I just say me, you know, I try and do some research and push my way through to see, you know, which part of, you know, if my family have some, you know, property in Elutra, and I was like, hey, let's sell this, let's put this together, because they're looking for acreage. And even in the newspaper early in the year, I started to see they wanted soil testers and they wanted them to be qualified. And I said, hey, why would we need these soil testers and we hiring somebody full time to do this? Only could have been for the marijuana, right? What else? Because we had farming for a long time, and I've never seen positions like this. But did anybody see those? They want chemists and soil testers, and did anybody see those like 5 jobs they were running for about a week? Anybody saw them early in the year?
No, but if I had
No.
seen it, I might have applied.
Okay, there you go. Good. Yeah, you on the right track. Yeah, I could get some soil too. So right, the money is there. When you read the newspaper and you see that it says, or the IDB is going to donate $5 million, or we have $1 million here or 10 million here for this small businesses, or for a grant for that, in your head you should be like, okay, it's $5 million. I only want 50,000. Let me try and research to see how I could get this 50,000, because again, it's it for Bahamians. You are Bahamian, and so therefore you may be saying, why letting DeAndre get all this money? Why letting Sheena get all the money? Or at least get no piece of this for me too, right? So apply. But do you all see in the papers when you're reading where they say $1 million investment or 10 million for this or what have you? Do you all see that? Anybody? No?
No.
You all don't ever see the IDB donate this or what happened? $5 million for sport.
Oh,
You
yes,
all don't read the budget.
yeah. It is.
You all don't read the budget? Sorry?
No, I said I saw it before. Yeah.
Yeah, so it normally a headline when they're talking about big money that they want to invest into the country. And so therefore, when you see that the budget debate for July says there is $50 million for small businesses. In your head, you should be saying, okay, I need to get my business license and I need to go and get a piece of this $50 million. Because some of this is for me. Because they can't, they have to distribute it. Why can't you get a piece of the pie? Okay, so you read the newspaper, and that's why I say, if you have a group of friends that you hang out with on the weekends, for 3 weekends, y'all party hard, do whatever makes you feel good, have a great time. But one weekend, you'll brainstorm, you'll come together, you'll invest together, you'll look for good interest rates, good investments, and opportunities that are out there. And you'll be very, very surprised that there are opportunities out there. Like I don't know if I shared with this class, but there were 5 guys who were going to graduate from high school and in America, and they, parents always get a graduation present. Sometimes people get cars, and they came together and they told all their parents, hey, don't buy me no car, what have you, give me the money. And so the 5 of them pooled their money and they bought a dilapidated house and they fixed it up and they got a mortgage, and now it's an Airbnb and it's very profitable. They made $140,000 in the first year. Okay, and so if you want to survive, if you want to keep your head above the water when a pandemic comes or when somebody loses their job or when somebody gets sick, you need at least 5 revenue streams. And the pandemic taught us, like I said, what is essential. So one needs to be online and one needs to be in fishing and farming or nursing or something to the hospital or something for the essential services, and then you survive. And then you don't have to worry so much about these jobs and compromising yourself. And if they expect you to do something wrong, but you're too afraid to lose your job, so you have to become unscrupulous. No, prepare yourselves now. I think I said this to you last week, or was it my other class?
No, it was last week. I listened to the recording.
Yeah, I say so. I keep saying this. Okay, yeah. So y'all get my drift. So I hope this resonates with some of y'all, and y'all get your revenue streams together. So you don't have to submit to the pressures of this world, and like in the compliance department, and like I said, you don't have to fear a losing your job. I mean, nobody wants to lose their job, but however, you have a backup plan that if I should lose my job, I can still pay my children's school fees. I can still pay my mortgage, and I don't have to worry. You know what I mean? I can survive until I find my next opportunity. Okay, Deanna, go ahead.
Ms. Bullard, I have a question about PEPs. I've come across it a number of times while at work, and I'm still not sure how to respond to it when the query comes up, but I kind of just stick to what I've been reading. But is there a timeline within the Bahamas for how long a person is considered a PEP? Like let's say, for example, we have a husband and wife, and the husband is a PEP, but they're now divorced. After how much time could we not consider the wife as an affiliate to the PEP?
Okay, so let me give you a little history.
Mhm.
Before 2018, the central bank in its guidelines had however, and so a lot of institutions had 1 year after they leave office. However, when the law changed, they removed that clause and they said it's discretionary now. Now, my view, and this is my view because my background is from Royal Bank, and the Canadian banks are very conservative. So in the Canadian banks, at least at Royal Bank, we said once a PEP, always a PEP. Because look at now, who is it? Ingram. He's on the TV every day. He was the prime minister 10 years ago, but he is now on the campaign trail and saying, so he still has that affiliation. And so can we say that Ingram is no longer a PEP because he's been out of office for 10 years? So like I said, the Canadian world would say once a PEP, always a PEP. In the Swiss world, again, like I say, they don't like to follow the law. And so they say, okay, 5 years after you leave office, we will remove him from PEP status. However, we will simply watch the news and see, or Google him and see if he is at the rallies and promoting the political scene. If he's not, if we don't see him in the news saying vote for FNM, vote for PLP, then we'll monitor him. But even though you remove him from PEP after the 5 years, then you still monitor him annually because you'll still let him be high risk. It'll have to be at least 10, 15 years. You don't see him in the news, what have you. And again, like I say, it's all discretionary. But when central bank came in, this person has only been out of office for 1 year. Already, you have not status, or you have already status. And so the compliance and they advised us to discuss it and then document it. So it's like best practice. So it's really up to your organization to make a decision that we are going to say 5 or 10 years. So once you document it, then you have to stick to it, because essentially when the regulators come in, they are going to review what is in your policy and then test it, right? My view is once a PEP, always a PEP.
And that's what I was reading. I read that. So that's what I kind of, because we had the agent argue with us that, she's now divorced, but the divorce just passed.
And they still have kids and
right.
So yeah, I would still monitor that annually until I'm absolutely certain that there's no risk or no threat or what have you. Okay. But like I said, in the Swiss, when I was at the board meeting, when I worked at this company, they were adamant 5 years and do your monitoring. And if these people ain't in the news, then take them off the PEP list. So, you know, that was the majority vote. So I said, okay, fine, you know, I fight over this, and I was fine with that. But the important thing is whatever the decision is, it's documented and it's followed. What is
Okay.
happening, and where you would get audit notice that everybody just using their judgment and nobody documented and nobody, you know what I mean? Record it and doing what they're supposed to do. So speak to whomever in your on your board or what have you, and say what amount of years do we want to, you know, put on it, if you don't want to say once a PAP, always a PAP.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank
Miss
you.
Ann, you wanted to say add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to help. I know each institution is different. So with my financial institution, it's once a PEP, always a PEP. But if you have been removed from office, they review the transaction on the account for about 5 years, after 5 years. And then with that, that's where they determine if to make you low risk or moderate risk. Most of the times it's moderate because they still have that PEP affiliation either way. So it's definitely based on the institution.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Miss Lynn, for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Deandra?
No, I was going to say the same thing Ms. Lane said. It's based on your institution, and you'd have to find out, like Ms. Fullett said, from the person who's in charge in your institution. But for us, for my institution, we flag, even though you may be out of office or you may no longer be affiliate to a PAP or however, we flag it so as to provide triggers. So you can still spontaneously check to make sure that this person is still, after a certain period, no longer affiliated or still an out of office public figure or however your tag is to that PAP.
Okay, so let's look at Ingram and Perry Christie, because like I said, the last time I saw the two of them talking about Hurricane Dorian, not necessarily, you know, they was just bashing the government for Hurricane Dorian. And then we didn't see them. Now the election is on. Now we see Ingram saying, I endorse Dwayne Sands or something like that. And then he had some other problems with not being on the register. So he was out there arguing. So he's been out of office for 10 years and we haven't seen him, would we have changed him to low risk now or moderate and now put him back to high?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think
An endorsement is different unless he was heavy within politics still, then yes. But I definitely think Cuban Ingram and Perry Christie are people that you would keep at a moderate risk.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Okay, good. But I'm wondering, is this the pandemic year? That's why they're having all these rallies and stuff like that. So he doesn't have a position. He ain't no chairman or no something counselor or something to that effect. No convention. You would have seen it at a convention or you would have seen it at a rally. Correct?
Right, you would
But
see
this a
him.
pandemic year, so we really don't know.
And that's why you monitor the transactions on their accounts.
Okay.
So that's different. So you do transaction monitoring. So you review their history of their account and see if their business with you poses the threat.
Right. So no big money coming through. Okay.
Right.
Good. Alicia?
I just had a question of, if I worked for a PEP, would that make me high risk by association because I work for him or her?
If he was his permanent secretary, yes.
Yeah. So
No.
again, one important thing is that the definition of a PEP is different in different countries. And this was an ICA question a few years ago where they asked, describe or give a definition for a PEP, and you had to write 3,500 words. And people were like, how do we write 3,500 words on this? But WorldCheck Thomson Reuters has an article out on the definition of a PEP and who is a PEP. And so again, in certain countries like Mexico and Russia, the PEP definition is more stringent than it is in the UK. And so this whole article talks about how Mexico says if you are a civil servant, you are considered a PEP. And so if you open up an account in Mexico, you work for the government, you are a PEP. If you open an account in Russia and you work for the government, then you are a PEP. And so, could you imagine Bank of the Bahamas? Bank of the Bahamas, people who work there would only have IRS and only have PEPs, right? Because most of the government and employees accounts are there. And so that would make the business overall high risk. So if you work in offshore, you are to find out what the laws are in that country. If you have Mexican clients, you can't just say, well, in the Bahamas, we only go in as far as permanent secretary. In Mexico, they say civil servant. So then how do you handle that, right? And that's important to document somewhere on the file that you are aware in that country, this person may be considered a PEP. Now, you work for the person, it says close associate. That's your manager. He has influence over you. She has influence over you. How long you been working there? 10 years, or like you would take these things into consideration. It seems like you'll have a strong relationship. This person will have influence over you. How susceptible, what is your position? You would just, let's say you are the secretary or the assistant or what have you, or you are one of the managers, you and their senior on their senior team. You know, how dedicated or how loyal are you to this person? Yeah, I would consider you a PEP if you work for a PEP. What's your take, Deandra?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Hi.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to figure out why it wasn't unmuting. Sorry. Hello?
Yeah, what would you think about Alicia working for a PEP?
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, she may be having some difficulties. Celine, what would be your take?
Well, like you said, it's different in different countries. So it's based on it depends on where you work. So any senior official with my institution, I know Central Bank has their guidelines, and then all institutions base their guidelines off of Central Bank's guidelines. So it's definitely based on where you work, the institution you work for. So you educate yourself based on that aspect. So the permanent secretary is definitely considered a PEP with my institution because they work closely with the prime minister. That's their right hand. So that's a close associate, regardless of however they feel. You may not be a family member, but you work hand in hand with this person, so you're automatically considered a PEP. Hello?
Hi, y'all. I think
For
I got.
example, personal assistants are considered a PEP to the instance. In that instance, they would be working hand in hand or working closely with the PEP.
Sorry, I got hit off. I just got back on. I didn't hear the question. Yeah, basically, we were asking if she works for, let's say, Fred Mitchell, has a private legal practice and she's his personal assistant.
Well, definitely. Well, Fred Mitchell, how long? I don't fully remember how long Fred Mitchell has been out of office, but he's running again.
He's still a chairman. He's still a chairman. So
he's still
He's
a
the
chairman.
yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
with
senior officials, we know chairmen, deputy chairmen of a board, like government affiliated boards and what's not. Anything government affiliated, then you know that you're still a PEP.
Yeah,
and
but
a lot of these private entities have political persons on their board as well. So you have to be careful. You have to do your investigations.
So what she's asking, Vicilene, is she works for his, let's say he owns a bakery. And she works in the bakery with him. Would she be considered a PEP, or he owns a private legal practice and she is his personal assistant? Would she become considered a PEP?
If she works for the legal practice and is his personal assistant, then yes. Now in the bakery, it depends. It depends on your role in the bakery.
And if she's been to the bakery for 30 years, she's family, right?
Yes, pretty much.
Right, yeah. So
it's definitely someone to monitor.
right. Make sure she ain't getting $100,000 for
Under the
them
table.
brownies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So did anybody have the opportunity to read chapter 7?
Yes.
Okay. And did give me an overview then of chapter 7 and what you took from it.
So chapter 7 is basically speaking about customer risk profiling. So it has to do with basically coming up with required risk rating for all client relationships that your company might be considering engaging in or have actually engaged in business with those specific clients. And you would also have to risk rate existing clients. So for my company, we're in insurance and we would have never done any type of KYC or customer profiling before, but we're now required to. So when it was rolled out, our approach was we basically took it from whichever of our clients were renewing at the time. We would do the risk rating and profiling for them. And when I say risk rating, as in we're basically rating if a client would be considered low, medium, or high risk. And we're creating a risk profile for each client. So that risk profile would be based on, where they were born, where they're residing, where their source of income might be coming from, their source of funds, the type of insurance that they'll be taking out with us. For every institution, it'll be different, but this is a standard for us. And basically looking at if they'll be paying in cash or credits or online transfers, and if they're affiliated or are a PEP, if they're a PEP or affiliated with a PEP. So that's our company standard, but it'll take on a different approach for every different company. So chapter 7 basically speaks about that. And so it highlights all of the areas that a company has to look at when determining the risk profile of a client. So that's a basic summary of it.
Okay, so very, very good, Deanne, very correct. Okay, so you have an overview. And I just want to backtrack a bit. We talk about a risk framework of a country, then an organization, right? And remember we said that it's 3-tier. There's the risk appetite, the risk assessment, and then the risk rating. And we looked at, I am sharing the screen, and we looked at this before. And so we talked about risk appetite, we know what it is. We talked about the risk assessment, we know you need the control library and you need to identify the risks and ensure that there are controls in place. And now we need to risk rate the client. And essentially it's just like the answer, are they high, medium, or low? How susceptible they are to money laundering, terrorist financing. And we want to categorize them properly to ensure that we have documentation of how often they should be monitored to ensure that we mitigate some of the risks associated with their account. Okay, and so I'm going to start again at the country level first. Remember, each country is rated by the Basel Index, and across the industry, I've attended many seminars where the regulators say that primarily there's a systemic problem where all of the risk ratings are either incorrect, they don't have proper scoring, persons don't understand it, no compliance officer can explain it, right? And methodology is the explanation. What did you put into this to come out as high risk, or to make it low risk, or to determine this is what my rating is? And this is I'm just showing you this again. We discussed this already at the country level. No country is gonna want to be high risk because, again, sanctions are put against the country. Not, I could use the word sanction, but you would find that person say, I don't do business with high risk countries. So essentially that's a reputational sanction against that country because they are high risk. And so, of course, if the international regulator says that the Bahamas is now high risk, we are going to lose a lot of business. A lot of people will pull out from us and no longer do business with us. So the international regulator is going to have to explain to us exactly how they determine that we are high risk. And so this is their methodology. And just like internationally, they need to tell the country what categories they use to determine high, medium, or low. We need to be able, we don't share this with the client, but we at least need to prove to the regulators when they came in, this is the formulas that we use, these are the percentages, and this is how we determine that this client would have been high, medium, or low. Okay? And so each country is risk rated, each institution is now risk rated. And so no institution wants to be risk rated because they have now tied audits to your risk rating. And so if your company is risk rated high, then that means you have to be audited each year. And of course, we know when audits take place, they take, we don't have a specific coordinator dedicated. They say, basically get all the files for the auditor, answer all that question. It takes up a lot of time, and staff are constantly on edge, especially management when audit is in. So could you imagine that happening every year? So of course, you want to ensure that your appetite does not cause you to be overall high risk. And compliance, normally I monitor that by saying, listen, we do business with Russia, we do business with PEPs, we do business with high risk countries. However, you can't have more than 20% of the business in high risk countries and with PEPs or with correspondent banking, because this would make the business overall high risk. So I monitor that to ensure that they don't go over specific thresholds, because if 50% of our business is high risk, that means our company is now high risk, and our company is then subjected to enhanced due diligence, right? And so we want to avoid that at all costs. So I constantly monitor that each month when they're opening up accounts. And sometimes I have to say, no, we simply can't open another Russian account because that would take us over the limit. And then with the regulators, we'd be considered high risk. Okay, is that clear so far?
Yes.
You all there? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's clear. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to ensure that your appetite does not cause you to be overall high risk. Okay, and we understand the methodology. The methodology is just simply explaining, how did I determine this person was high risk? Where did this come from? Did I just pull it out of my hat? Because a lot of, we don't ever share this with the customer, but we do share it within the institution. And of course, the salespeople will be on your back. They do not want their customers to be high risk because they don't want to do the enhanced due diligence, and they don't want to ask the client for additional information. They don't even want to do the continuous monitoring annually. They wish every customer was low risk. And so I've seen salespeople try to manipulate our forms to put in information that would make the customer appear to be low risk. And so they don't even have to do the first review for the first 3 years. Then when the review is done, 3 years, you look at it and you say, but how could this person have been low risk when they are PEP or they are associated with a PEP? So I've seen salespeople manipulate forms. Has anybody else experienced that, where the sales teams have manipulated the forms to ensure that the customer who is indeed high risk does not come out as high?
Yes, I've experienced that from our
Okay.
agents. And
Okay.
I had to review the
Okay,
form
good.
in detail because based on his profession, he was definitely considered high risk.
Okay, great, great. So good. You have to look out for it just again. And you know, I brought this to the attention of the CEO several occasions, and he said, "Well, Miss Willard, you know, you want us to be overall high risk, you know, would be how much that will cost us." I said, "But sir, then we cannot open the account." "Oh, Miss Willard, we have a quota to meet. How could we not open the account?" You know, so what do you do? So that's a constant fight between sales and compliance. And sometimes, and you know, depending on the culture, they don't take it seriously. And then the CEO in their meeting, they know these things, and they stand up and say, "Oh, Ms. Bullitt has brought it to our attention that we are nearing the percentage and we can't open any more high risks." And so instead of them not opening any more high risks, they just, like I said, manipulate the form. So you want to ensure that you check it properly to the best of your ability, but a lot of information gets manipulated. So they could get sales. So you want to be careful with that. So on top of it being manipulated, most of our institutions have an Excel sheet. And I have a copy of a risk rating, that I'm going to share. So that same methodology that they have at the country level, at the organization level, you should have a methodology. And so if you look at the, well, let me try and scroll up, where it says sharing, this is a example of a regular, I've seen this like in 3 different institutions, where we add in the nationality of the person. If there are 2 persons on the account or 3 persons, this form can hold up to 3 persons. And once you select the nationality, let's just go with Afghanistan. Of course, we know Afghanistan is high risk. And so if you look at the scoring at the end, the highest score you could get in this category is 10. And of course, you see Afghanistan gives you a 10 automatically, right? And so if you have 2 persons on this account from Afghanistan, you see that you get full points. So more than likely, just the nationality of the person would cause it to be high risk. So we are born in Afghanistan. Where do we live? Afghanistan. So you can get 20 points. And of course, you get full points because Afghanistan is considered high risk. So on the back side of this is now our methodology. How do we explain who decided whether or not these countries are high risk or low risk? Was it Ms. Bullitt just to say, "Oh, that's Afghanistan," and so we decide it's high risk? What about Austria? Is Austria very popular? Do I know anything about the government or the country or anything like that? Can I say Austria is high risk or low risk? Who tells me the country rating? Anybody?
The Basel index, right?
Correct. The Basel index then tells me, or Transparency International then tells me who is high risk or low risk. What another problem that we found with these risk ratings is that this form says, let's see, where is it? 2016, right? And so that means in 2016, I went to the Basel committee and I got these ratings. And I just said, basically, yes, they're high risk. No, they are not high risk. From 2016 is 2021. Have I gone back to the Basel committee? The Basel committee updates their country ratings every year. Sometimes there are changes, sometimes they're not. Have I ever gone back to the Basel committee and updated? Or this is the same form that we passing around from 2016? What y'all think?
You should have.
Should have updated them.
I should have, but did I? What happens in the real world? Did I update it?
No, you just
Don't think so.
Okay, so that's another industry-wide problem. When we go into institutions, that's what we look for. We look for version dates. And then we ask, can you show us where you would have updated and that these are the current ratings for 2021? So industry-wide, we found that once they had this form down back, they never revised it, okay? So it was giving old, outdated information, okay? And let's just say Afghanistan had put all the information in place, the 40 recommendation, they passed their laws and now they were no longer blacklisted. This is still giving me a blacklisted rating, right? So that was another problem that they found across the board. And so you want to ensure that you always look at a version date and to see how is this outdated or current information. The next problem with these forms, these are, what should I say? These are Excel sheets, right? And there's something called end user computing. If there are 5 people in the institution that complete risk ratings, we share this sheet with them because normally the account opening department would complete the risk rating. There are 10 people in my account opening department, and what they do is they just forward this on. And so if we look right up here, we see that there's a formula in there. But in Excel, sometimes you lose formulas. Sometimes there are microbes. Sometimes there's something called end user computing where that just tells you whether or not your document still holds the correct formulas or not, or the system threw them out or not, but nobody checks that. So this formula could be incorrect. We found that there were 10 persons in the department and they were just emailing. They didn't have this form saved on a drive. Some people had it saved on their computer in their email, and every time it was time to do a risk rating, they just say, pull up the last one they used and change the information, right? So when we looked in the department, there were like 17 different versions of the same form being used, and all were deficient, okay? So they weren't giving a proper overall rating. So I'm just sharing this with you so you can check, especially if you go into a compliance department or if you work in account opening, these are the things that you want to check for to make sure all these formulas are still correct and everybody who has a sheet using the same sheet. So once a year, you send these sheets to the IT department for them to check for the microbes in the end user computer and to ensure that all your formulas are the same across the board. You know, because you see how long this formula is, you just one, I could change the C to D and that would throw off the whole form, right? But nobody's checking, okay? So you want to ensure that these things are checked so you can give a proper rating, because imagine this happening at the country level and they telling us that we high risk. We want them to check everything to make sure that they didn't make any mistakes, so right? And so we want to ensure that we do the same thing for the client, okay? So then it comes down to, if this is at the top, this was actually, if this was a company, if this was just an individual, we would start here with nationality. So that means the company could have been registered or incorporated in Afghanistan and it's domiciled in Afghanistan. Then let's come down and say the people live in Afghanistan too. So of course, yeah, automatically, if we go look at the legend, but there's no legend on this one, but it normally says between 0 and 30 to 50 is medium, to between 50, anything over 50 is high risk. So just, we're not even halfway through. We're just on the nationality or on the nationality of the people, and we already 10, 20, 40, 50, we already at 60, you know, so I don't even need to go any further. This person is going to be high risk, okay? So the question on the final exam normally asks you to explain some of the categories that you would find on a risk rating. And like I say, again, you tailor this to your business. There is a minimum standard where they say, you know, You must ask certain questions. However, people, depending on the business, they have some of these categories and some they don't. So of course, nationality is a common one. Domicile is a common category. Then professional sector, the business activity, the country of work, the type of account, corporate, individual, employee, or trust. Right in here, there's a special client status. So this person could be from the Bahamas. They could only invest in they wanted savings accounts or very low risk investments. They could not be a PEP. But right here, no, where is it? Operational risk. I could just, if I say yes, automatically, well, this formula working properly right now. But if I click on yes, automatically this will take it over 50. So normally you should have a default on your sheet to automatically make the person high risk if because he either went to jail, something has happened, or there's some special information that you have and you want to monitor this person annually. So you would have, you know, a special indicator on your sheet. So you can automatically make the person high risk because you have extra information. Then transactional activity, initial deposit, met with the beneficial owner, yes or no. You know, central bank says if you did not meet with the beneficial owner, you want to give them a higher rating, not that overall they become high risk. Because in the offshore world, you primarily never meet introducers around the world. And so that means all of your accounts will be high risk, but you just want to give this rating. They want to see this, and you can get 20 points. So they give them the highest rating, they'll get 20 points. Now, in these other categories, they may have not lived in a high risk country. They might have lived, let's say, in the Bahamas. So of course, you get no points. So nothing contributes towards your where you live if you're from the Bahamas. And so all these categories could possibly come out to 0, and then you could just have 20 points for not met the client. And so overall, you would still be low risk. Okay, we understand that?
Yes,
Is that clear? Okay, good. So that does not mean that you have to be high risk overall. Okay, and so again, each one of these categories, this is the methodology. How do you decide if I'm high risk or not? And persons can explain it. They can't, they don't understand the methodology. They don't know how it works. They don't know where we get these country ratings from. They don't update the sheet. And like I say, you have 10 people in the department, you have 10 versions of one form. Okay, so they are the common issues and problems across the board with these sheets and what the regulators have found. Okay, and then you have the salespeople. Nobody wants to do enhanced due diligence. Nobody wants to monitor every year. And then, of course, overall, you don't want the business to come out as high risk because then they will be subjected to high enhanced due diligence. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have a proper form with proper formulas. You want to have it reviewed annually for microbes. You want to ensure that everybody in the department has, you keep it in a centralized location. So you have one version of the sheet and everybody's using the same version. And that it's kept, like I said, reviewed annually and updated, and that it spits out the proper information. Because essentially the regulators later said across the board, they checked 35 risk rating forms, or 35 were deficient. Okay. Any questions?
Not right now. I may have some next
No
week.
questions
after
on the
I
risk
listen.
rating? Okay. We've seen risk ratings before.
Yes,
Anybody?
ma'am. Yeah.
Okay,
no.
and is this similar?
Ours is a little less, but you know, we're a special case.
Right,
But,
and so again,
but it is similar,
yeah, so
somewhat.
you tailor it to your business. You
Right.
don't, you know, and you only need the specifics.
Right. So the thing with the insurance industry is all of the insurers are using one template. It was a template that was formulated by a consultant,
Mhm.
and every insurer agreed to use that template. So general insurer, I should say.
Okay, but that's good because across the board, you know,
Right.
when central bank said could be, you know, some after they said that they found all these deficiencies and inconsistencies, somebody said, well, could we have a template that all of us use? And they say, no, tailor it to your business. So there's like no guide, no template, there's no official one out there that persons can say that we found this to be the most effective one. Another
Right.
thing is a lot of people are in the design, like you said, a consultant design your own. You have to send in with your risk framework, you have to send this to the central bank, right? They found that there's so many inconsistencies in the formula. When I sent my risk framework, they simply sent it back and said, can you please have a CPA confirm that your formulas are correct? And so I went to the board and I said, you know, I got a quote from Deloitte and Touche to, you know, confirm and do the checks and write the official letter to say that the formula is correct. And so they say, you could write the letter yourself. We ain't paying Deloitte and Touche. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not a CPA. And even if I was, I would be the compliance officer. I don't cross those boundaries because they have various tests that they do to make sure. And after they said that we checked 35 and alternative is going to be on my name, I said, no, you all need to pay Deloitte and Touche charge, you know, like $1,500 to confirm that this is your framework is correct. Let them sign off on it. They was very upset at me because I didn't sign off on it, but I could have signed off on it and central bank still send it back and say, is Ms. Bullet a CPA? I'm not. They said I have a CPA confirmed, right? So that's what they meant. But you know, the business always tries to cut corners. But to me, that was essential because you wanted it checked and you wanted confirmation that these formulas were correct. But they had a big issue with me for that, but it didn't matter. But in the end, you know, they did send it to got to check. Okay, so again, high, medium, or low, and primarily the regulators will be concerned about the high risk. They come in and they normally say, give me 100% of the high risk we want to check. We'll check 25% of the low and 25% of the medium. And in that check, they are testing to ensure that the form wasn't manipulated, that this person was indeed low risk, and that you have that person categorized properly. Okay? Give me some feedback, please. Sheena, I want to hear from Sheena. Sheena?
Well, I understand what you're saying. Basically, with the risk rating, like I got the spreadsheet that will help you to analyze with the percentage so you can know exactly what you're working with. So, I mean, it was like straightforward, basically, what you were doing.
Okay, excellent. So good that it's clear. And I've seen this in Word form as well, because the company, again, had to do the same thing where central bank said, go out and have this tested and check and bring it back to confirm. And they had to send it out like 3 or 4 times. And every time they sent it back, Deloitte had charged them $200 more. And so they said, forget about this formula thing. We are going to do a Word thing. So they put in 10 categories and they said, if you meet 5 of these categories, you're high risk. If you meet less than 5, you're low. And so they didn't even have the medium category yet. I was like, is the regulator going to accept this? And they did. So they moved away completely from the numeric scoring because they could not get it right. Okay.
So what do you use if they're not using the numeric? What did they revert to?
So they said they asked 10 questions.
Okay.
Is the person from a high-risk country? Yes or no? Is the person from domicile in a high-risk country? Yes or no?
Oh, like that.
Yeah, like that. Is the professional sector high risk? Yes or no? And so they said, if you had 5 yeses, you were high risk.
Okay.
If you had less than 5, you were low, like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And that moved them away from the scoring,
Okay.
having it checked, having it certified, and all those different things.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good. Anybody else?
Miss
Any?
Blythe, sorry. So wouldn't that be room for more, basically, manipulation of the risk rating for that company if they use the 5 questions Word document thing?
Sorry, what was your question about the manipulation of the document?
No, I'm saying like how you said, some persons haven't used the actual formula or Excel sheet document. They form, they use the Word document and says you have 5 yeses or however it would, you wouldn't be high risk or you would be high risk. Yes. But wouldn't that be room for more, like, I wouldn't say fraudulent or more manipulation of whether or not the customer is actually high risk or not?
I agree, but you know, and maybe it was just a ploy, but that's what I didn't think. I said I didn't think that the regulator was going to accept it, but the regulator called, asked a few questions, and they said okay, and they accepted it. But as I did reviews for that company, I saw that that word weight wasn't sufficient, like you say, to ensure that that person. Then they eliminated the medium. So like I said, you're either low or you're either high. So of course, you know, the salespeople wanted everybody to be low. So I said that this is not a true reflection of the portfolio that we hold. You know, but that company closed down, so it didn't matter in the end. You know, if it was going to remain open, then I would have to fix some stuff. But I essentially was only hired to close them down. So I just saw it and I said, okay, they got away with it. You know?
Nothing you can do now because they're closing down.
Yeah, I mean, they close and they get away with this one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the classwork question. What does the classwork question ask? Anybody have it up? Anybody have the classwork with them? No?
Put it up right now.
Okay.
Says identify the risk categories that should be considered on a risk rating form. Explain the methodology and scoring system.
Okay. So identify the categories at the country level for me.
Sorry, Miss, but that was whistling. You can repeat that, please. I'm trying to pull it up, but it wouldn't. My thing wouldn't come up. You can repeat the question, please.
Sorry, it says identify the risk categories that should be considered on a risk rating form and explain the methodology and scoring system.
So how many questions in that one question?
Two.
How many?
3.
3. Okay.
3.
So I want somebody to answer part 1, somebody to answer part 2, somebody to answer part 3. At the country level, what are the categories?
I'll take the easy part. Rating, low, medium, and high.
No, categories.
No, I said I'm not gonna answer that one. I'll pass on that one.
Okay.
Will it be the same? We'll be looking at the domain 1, domain 2, and domain 3.
Yes, they are the categories. And if you want to say at the country level, there are 3 domains. Is it 3? It may be more than 3. No, there are 5 domains, and one is the quality of the AML CTF framework, which is 65%, which entails FATF, mutual evaluation, tax, justice. You know, you could list those, and you should be able to get full 4 points for that first part of the question. Okay, if we were to ask it on the, where is it? Let me change it. No, okay. At the client level, what are the categories at the client level?
That's the type of work, nationality, domicile.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Okay. So if the question doesn't specifically say country, it may just say at the client, or it may just say what the level. It's easier to remember at the client level. So automatically it say, give me 5 categories you find on a risk rating form. Nationality, domicile, professional sector, type of account, operational risk, transactional activity, met the client, AUMs expected. Okay, they are the categories. What's the second question? What's the second part of the question?
Explain the methodology and scoring system.
Okay, explain the methodology, Miss Lynn. Where do we get nationality, domicile, and country of work from?
From the customer. So their passport would give us nationality and date of birth. I mean, place of birth, their domicile. And then
And who would confirm if these countries are high, medium, or low?
The Basel Index.
Basel index.
Correct. Or Transparency International. Very good. Very good. Okay, and what's the third part of the question?
explain the scoring system.
Scoring system.
Yeah, explain the scoring system. Sheena said it.
Low, medium, and high.
Yeah,
Low, medium, and high.
yeah. And so,
Sheena got that one on lock.
right.
That one unlocked.
Yeah, and or you could go into detail and say there are sometimes 10 to 14 categories. Each has a score. There's a legend that tells you, for example, customers with totals below 30 are low. Customers between 30 and 50 are medium, and anything over 50 is high. You could go, but or you could just say simply low, medium, high. Okay, and so that's how you.
Sorry, Ms. Bullock, can you get that scoring percentage again for me, please?
Again, it depends. It's tailored to your business now. This is just a generic, general one.
Because my
You would
business
say-
gives like a decimal. So it's not like if you go over anything or under 0.1 is low, moderate is 1 to 2, and 3 is high automatically.
Oh.
So it depends on the institution, how they want to do their scoring system.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you could say 0 to 30 is low. 31 to 49 is medium, and anything over 50 is high. That's just a general, generic, you know.
Okay, well, that's true because the banking system uses 1 through 5.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So we see how to answer that question. We see how to get full points. And we understand what the question is asking. Now, like I say, 100% of the time, person groups go with the categories. They give me mine, and then they forget the other 2 parts of the question. Then they come back and say, Ms. Bullitt, I only get 5 points and I write 3 pages. But do we understand why? They
Yes,
don't mention high, medium, or low. They don't mention methodology. They forget. And that's why it's always important to save a little bit of time to read over your essay to ensure that I covered the entire question.
All right.
Okay?
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, great, great. Okay, so now we understand risk rating, and we know that there's the country level, the company level, and then the client level. So 3 different levels how of who is risk rated, I guess you could say. Okay, and like I said, all levels, nobody wants to be high risk, right?
right.
So watch out for those salespeople who will try to swing you, because the CEO will take off for them because he have a quarter to me too, right? So just be aware of it. Okay, and so chapter 7, again, like you all said, you can read it in detail, but that's the basis of it. And that ends our session on risk. And so next week, we are going to go into chapter 8. Chapter 8 and chapter 9 basically talks about suspicious transactions and then cooperation with law enforcement. And I want you to look at the questions and ensure that you can answer them and do the classwork as you read it. And we will look at suspicious transaction form and go through it in detail, because as the MLRO, that's our responsibility to fill it out, to investigate, to ensure that we have sufficient information in there to clearly state what's happening with the client and why we need to report them. You will see they have a long page of where you write an essay, and so this is why we practice writing essays, because we want to, put out good representation of there. We don't want it to be like those police reports that need an interpreter, or in court, nobody can read it, right? And so this is why we practice writing our essays, to give us a refresher. So some of us graduate back in the 70s, so we need a little refresher on essay writing so we can do it properly. Okay, so that's risk. Any questions or concerns? Are we any risk? So I want some feedback on, and I think I asked before, because we understand it. We know what this risk-based approach means. When people say it, we know what enhanced due diligence means, because a lot of times people will walk around saying, we use the risk-based approach. Could you really explain what the risk-based approach is? Do you know what it is? Then they talked about risk appetite. Do you know what that is? The risk assessment, the 3 levels of defense, controls. Can we fully explain all of these things? Methodology. Okay, so let me know. That's the rest, and we going on the suspicious transactions. When we had the controls in place, we mitigated the risk. However, our business is still infiltrated. What do we do next? So that's where we get it. Okay, and then I don't know if I said this to you, but do you know what systems support you in the institutions to mitigate this risk? We work with Fortune 500 companies, so we have the very savvy systems that spit out reports and tell us. Recently, gone outside her profile, she deposited $500,000 to do an investigation, whereas some of us work in institutions where we have to manually look through transactions and see, there's no red flags or no indicators or what have you. Some of us work in institutions where the institution can afford to pay word check to check all these customers' names every night. And then some of us don't. Do we know what systems are there to support us versus what we have to do manually? half of the time, no, we don't know.
Ms. Bullet, even with those systems, right? I recently had a customer who came in to update his customer profile. Now, when we do a list screening on him, nothing came up. But I saw a note on his account that this customer needed to update. He is high risk, and we couldn't figure out why. Well, the account opener and personnel couldn't figure out it was high risk. So I took it upon myself to go and Google the person. When I Googled the person, it showed his whole arrest record, because it's public record, Florida public record, a whole arrest record where he spent 4 years in jail for cocaine trafficking and drug trafficking. Now, when we send it up to compliance for them to do their review, they had to call me back and ask me, well, how did you? I Googled them, and in Google, they had his middle name spelled wrong. They had his date of birth wrong, but of course the photo is always there. And every time they run a list screening on every name, the name that they had in the system for Florida corrections, it still would not come up on the list screening report. So certain things you have to be careful too. So it's good to go off on your own and do your own Google searches sometimes, because we can't rely on World Check all the time.
Okay, what did we learn from Dirty Money?
Oh yeah, that people would change their name. They would put a punctuation.
And that's all it is. Simple as that. It's simple as that. And
but the first name and the last name was spelled correctly. It was just his middle name and the date of birth.
And that's all he needed.
Yeah,
and that's all he needed for your system not to pick it up. Right?
But when we run list screening, but I understand that. But every time, like the account opening, when we would run a list screening, they would get a hit for the simplest things, and it would be like a false positive to this person. And it just was like amazing that it didn't even pick up on that. His first and last name was spelled correctly.
But these things are man-made, so you can't always depend on them 100%. So like you say, trust your intuition and go do proper due diligence, or go the extra mile to protect yourself and protect the company. Because like I said, after I watched Dirty Money, and I saw, as the operations manager, I used to get a list every month of the customers. And my job was to ensure that all the customers were reflecting in the system. And I just passed that on to my secretary. And she's always coming. She said, Miss Bullet, we have 900 customers, but only 830 is show. I don't know why. And so I say, send up to IT. IT never respond. Nobody ever looked back at it. So every month I start signing off on the report saying, yeah, I know 30 customers don't show. IT can't figure out why. And it's simple because after I watched Dirty Money, I figured out why. A hyphen was here, a letter was wrong, and each one had a problem. But no, like I said, I never check. I pass it on to the secretary because I thought this is a very remedial task. She could do this. I don't have time for that. Right? I sure have time for it now. And I sure if every month when I do the check and I am compliant, and that ain't even my responsibility anymore. I check to make sure. Y'all say y'all have 900 customers, 900 people show. Because every night the system is checking those names. And that means that name is not being checked, right? And with that, Vasilian, you need to go and read your AML policy, because our policy says once you are charged, we no longer have an appetite for you.
Yeah, he was charged and convicted.
Okay,
but because he's already an existing customer, we now have to apply enhanced due diligence to him.
Yeah, but existing or not, what does your policy say? Does your AML policy say that you have an appetite for people that are charged?
We don't, but that's out of compliance. They make the decision.
Yeah, but
they have a meeting with the...
No, you can't make a decision. It has, when audit comes in, because I had this experience. We had somebody who was charged. Our AML policy said, we don't have an appetite for charge. So they said, how is this account open on your books when you say you don't have an appetite for this? And I said, when he was an existing customer, they said, it does not state that. If you're existing, we will keep you open. It says we do not have an appetite. So I didn't change your policy and I got an audit note for that.
Ms. Bullet,
They
I
say
just know I
it-
did my job. So
Know your
I
job
can't
now.
exit the relationship.
Yes, and very good. So now your
So
next
I
step
did my
is
due diligence on him and I got all the
excellent.
necessary requirements. So if they decide to exit the relationship,
no,
that's
no.
on them.
No, it's not on them. They have to change the policy to
I
reflect
know
what
it's
they are
not.
doing, because you get audit notes and that's how you get fired. That's how the institution gets a bad reputation. The more
I
audit
know.
notes you get, somebody gotta go, right?
Somebody, but it ain't gonna be me. 'Cause I
Yeah,
did
but that's
my
what I'm
due
saying.
diligence.
So in your conversation, like you say, it's totally up to them. They are
Mhm.
compliant. You would just need to find out, is there a conflict on what we are doing versus what our policy says? Because the regulator is going to go with the policy.
Okay.
Okay, and you want to avoid as much audit notes as possible. And then they're going to say, why did not, compliance didn't do anything. The CEO didn't do anything. The account officer didn't do anything. Everybody goes to jail now, Wesley, and not just,
Well, Miss, I ain't no ride or die, Miss Bullet. I ain't going to jail for nobody.
Okay, but you failing to disclose. So you guided it, you failing to disclose, right? So like I say, just go and review it to make sure that there's no conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you would know for your own peace of mind, and then in conversation, you just say, we ain't doing with the policy states that we need to change the policy, or we need to close states out existing or not.
Yeah, and it was
There's a
so funny
conflict.
to me how compliance, they called me and they asked me, well, how did you pick up on it? I said, because I Googled it. Like I would assume that if I send a file review up to you and tell you that this person has adverse media, but you coming back to me to ask me to share the link or to how did you come up with this? I mean, y'all ain't even doing your check to see what I say in true.
Because they taking it seriously. We are very reactive.
Yeah, I was a bit
So
surprised.
you have
by
to go
that.
down in there for people to do their job. They have to get the audit note first and be threatened of being let go before the change is made. That's just life.
Well, I know I document
Okay.
everything. I always just document.
But until some people start going to jail, everybody just can take a chance. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you know better. Okay, so very good. Very good looking now. Okay? Okay, so any more questions or concerns? No? Well, it's clear as mud and we good. Get all this down back and we understand how to answer the question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So for those of you, excuse me, like Deanna did a full check, she making sure that you're on track. For those of you who haven't done your homework, please, 3 weeks left. Don't wait till the last class to find out that you don't get a good grade on your homework, okay? And now you can't sit comfortably in the final exam and you asking Ms. Bullet for another chance. No, these are all the chances right now, please. After that review class, you all ain't gonna be able to reach me. But I want you all to comfortably sit in that exam knowing that I am a quarter of the way there. I don't have to be so overwhelmed and with passing this exam because I halfway there. Okay, and it's very achievable. Like I said, if your institution offers you study leave, this is a time now to put it in. The exam date, or if you have family responsibility or can take some time just to relax and unwind and not be rushed and overwhelmed, all of that helps. Okay, and the key is to be being organized. By now, you should know. You already know your mandatory question. You should at least have the other 2 questions down packed. By the time we get to the review class, you should be like sanctions, taxes, risk, these my questions, and have them down packed. Whatever you do for homework, that should give you enough meat to answer questions with. Okay? So please don't let the time, I know we get very busy and the time just passes and you know, we don't know, but dedicate now 1 week to ensuring that you do your research, you go online, you look up your cases, you know, you need some for fraud, you know, you need it in the Bahamas. Dedicate your time now and speak to your families and ask them to work with you. If you cook and clean and overwhelm after work, ask them to give you, you know, house chores off for the rest, till you finish this course for the rest of the month. And so you could dedicate that time to studying and doing your research, and you come in the exam fully prepared, and then right afterwards you can celebrate and then pick up all those chores, you know, because I have somebody and she frequently tells me that she is valedictorian and straight A her entire life. But she is definitely having a struggle in this, not this class, in another class. And I asked her, what do you do when you get home? Why is you can't seem to even get your homework done? She had 2 pieces of homework to do. The class has 2 weeks left. She has done none. She says her daughter is in debutante, her husband is a pastor. She have to do this for church and that. Like, so basically her whole life is just overwhelmed. You know, I said, well, you have to decide if you will take a break from prayer meeting or debutante. And then she said, oh, I absolutely can. I say, okay. Well, you absolutely might fail. And you made an investment. You paid money, you own here for free. So if you have more money to give to the institute, then you can accept it. Or you could take control of your life right now and say that I've made a investment and I want the full return. So I have to miss out, even though I'm the pastor's wife, you have to miss prayer meeting a few days. You know, so I think the decision is yours. But I started to feel like I was the devil telling her to miss church, you know what I mean? And she was just going, Miss Bully, but I can't, the church depends on me, and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, but they could miss you, the church ain't gonna fall down if you're in there for a month. Okay, so I've seen, you know, in these classes that this is very achievable. It's a lot of work. It's very comprehensive. But if you dedicate your time and you organize yourself and you let go of some of your extracurricular activities, you tie yourself down for a month, you could do this. And she wants to go on to ICA. And I said, absolutely, there's no way you could go on to ICA if you that's 18 months. You know, you have to tie yourself down for Tracy. You can't go to prayer meeting for 3 months. And she said, oh, no, I can't. I say, okay, then, you know, stick with the church, but don't waste that money. Okay, so like I say, take a little break. And this is a lot. Going from work and coming to all this comprehensiveness and this long talking with Miss Bullet just go on when then Miss Bullet just goes south, you know. So yeah, you just need a break to digest it and to be able to retain it. And then you go back to work and you realize, I learned this in class. Let me see what we're doing here. And then some things may need to fix or change. Okay, so don't take it for granted that this requires a lot. It's very difficult to work and go to school and deal with a family. All right, and so you can't stop working. Miss Bullet don't stop talking, and she is lessening the load. So my only option is to sit down and have a word with my family and say, please, I can make this up to you later on, but let me get through this and support me. And this requires a lot. So let me, you know, let me have some time to get this on my belt. Okay, and I mean, I'm just saying this. Nobody in here has expressed this, but because I experienced this in my next class, and this seems to always be the problem, especially when I only have ladies. Like women will support their husbands 100% and say, "Oh, my husband is in school now, so I'm picking up the kids from school. I'm doing some of his chores." The men don't understand that always. They still expect you to cook. They still expect you to get the children from school. They still expect baby to sit on your lap while you in class. And Miss Bullet asking all these questions. Right? So I'm just sharing this to say, you know, as women, has been the general experience, and where I've seen people who are very scholastic not be successful. Okay, but I trust that all you are okay, and you have your time organized, and you have it scheduled to be able to, you know, have that downtime and unwind and feel good, and then have your mind clear enough to study without worrying what we could cook and if the family eats, and you know, if your children will still be living when you come out of class. I don't know if some of us have those worries, but like I said, just talk to your families and see if you can get a little bit support as we wind down, so that all of us are successful. Okay.
Thank you, Miss Bullard.
Okay.
Great, great. Okay, so you'll have a fabulous weekend, and I hope that you'll have good, productive weeks, and we'll see each other again next week. Same time, same place.
Have a good
Okay,
weekend.
goodbye.
Okay, bye
Okay,
everyone.
great.
safe.
Take care. Be safe.